Hey, thanks for checking out my video. I'm Olivia, and today I'm going to talk about all the palettes I used in April. So I've been tracking my makeup usage this month just so I could do this video, and based on my notes, I've used 21 palettes for the month. I have 12 palettes that I used just one time. There's 7 palettes here that I used twice throughout the month, and then there's 2 that I used 3 times. Just for context, I feel like I wear makeup, I would say on average, maybe like 6 days a week. And there were a few times where I used a couple different palettes to put one look together. So yeah, I'm gonna go through all the palettes I used. I did remember to take pictures because I feel like that makes the video a little bit more fun if I have pictures of the looks I created. The only times I didn't really take pictures are if I use a palette like in a video, either that's already on my channel or that will be on my channel. So if you're looking for a little bit more inspiration or some looks with those palettes, I encourage you to watch those videos. But yeah, let's just get into it. I'll start with the palettes that I used just once throughout April. And actually, I think one of the first ones I used was the Sugar and Grunge palette by Blend Bunny. This is obviously a very colorful palette. I was very inspired to reach for it for the spring season. And I do already have a video up using this palette, and I was creating more of like a grungy spring look. Overall, was a very solid makeup experience. Like I said, I was just really inspired by this color story, and I had a lot of fun working with the shadows. I really love how that look came out. So yeah, if you're wanting to see it in action, it's one of the last videos that I posted. The next palette I used in April was this little quad from ColourPop. This is the Bold and the Aries quad. I actually don't know if I have a picture of the look I created with this palette. I think I brought this to my parents' house one weekend where like I wasn't really sure if I'd actually have enough time to do my makeup, but I ended up doing a quick look with this, and I used just these 3 shades right here. Haven't touched it since. I'm not usually inspired by quads. Again, I just kind of reached for it knowing if I was going to do something, it was going to be quick and simple. The next palette I used in April that I also used just once is actually the Lilac You a Lot palette from ColourPop. We're not off to a good start because I also don't have a picture of this one because this was actually one of my YouTube videos. I used this palette in my Singles Saturday video. That video, as you could probably imagine, was just focused on using some single shadows, and I ended up choosing this palette to pair with the singles I chose for that video. If you wanted to see this palette in action, I did still create a full look with this before I went in with the singles, so I encourage you to check that one out as well. I would love to use this one again soon though. I feel like the colors are just so cute and perfect for like the spring and summer season. It's just a very fun and playful purple palette. So another palette that I used one time in April was the Glamlight and Michaela palette. This was the first of 2 collabs that they had done together, and I'm sorry, but I actually used this one in a video as well that will be coming on my channel soon. So unfortunately, I don't have any pictures to show you in this video, but I did film a 2 looks 1 palette video with this, so that should be on my channel probably in the next couple weeks. I will say I'd love to create another look with it soon though. There's so much you can do with this palette, and even trying to create 2 colorful looks, I still feel like didn't really use the full potential of the palette, if that makes sense. I don't know, I'm still very inspired by it, and I'd like to use it again soon. But yeah, overall, very fun palette. I love the looks I created, and I'm excited to show you those soon. Alright, I think this is probably the first palette I'm talking about that I actually have a picture with. But this is the Dominique Cosmetics Latte 2 palette. I'm not gonna lie, I very often forget about the palettes from Dominique Cosmetics, but like high-key, solid palette. These are really nice. So I'll pop up a picture on the screen here, but for this look, I think I used the 6 center shades from the palette. I really wanted something a little bit smoky, but also with a brighter kind of peachy pop, so that's what I tried to do. I really focused this kind of peachy pink color on the front of the look, and I also used it to blend out the outer part of the look. And yeah, I was really happy with how this look turned out. I feel like I'm going to say this for all the palettes, but I'd love to dip into this one again. I don't know if I've ever used the yellowy or kind of aqua shade here, and I feel like those are the most fun shades in the palette. So this is definitely something I'd like to reach for again soon, and hopefully you'll see it in my next palette roundup video. So the next palette I used once in April was the Avatar The Last Airbender palette from Lethal Cosmetics. And this is the Air palette. This is what the inside looks like. I definitely went for a more neutral look for this one, and I will pop up a picture of that one on the screen too. Honestly, most of the times I do my makeup, it's either like a neutral kind of basic look that I'm doing for work, or something a little more adventurous that's probably going to be for a YouTube video. So a lot of the pictures you're going to see today are looks that I'm doing for work. They're a little bit more basic. They're not going to be super bold or colorful. So I'm hoping that's not too boring. But realistically, these are also the looks that I'm doing on a regular kind of everyday basis. So I still thought it'd be fun to share. So for the look you're seeing on the screen here, I used these 3 shades on this side and then these 2 as well. I thought this look turned out really pretty. I had smudged this light blue shimmer just kind of on the inner part of the lower lash line. And I feel like the contrast of that like really light blue with this kind of like duochrome shade on the lid just looked really cool and interesting. I find that that's always just kind of a fun way to spice up a look and make it a little bit more interesting and fun without going like too overboard if you're like, again, not wanting to be super adventurous for work. So that's just a technique or like little detail that I've been really into lately. The next palette that I used once in April was the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. I'm not gonna lie, this was probably one of my least favorite looks of the month. Not necessarily because it sucked. However, I also feel like I really enjoyed all the other looks I did. I feel like makeup nowadays is so good for the most part that it's kind of hard to create something shitty. So again, the look I did with this one, not bad, it just really wasn't my favorite. I think it was more user error. But I used these three shades up here. I used the shimmer, which was really beautiful. I think my downfall was using the bright pink on the inner corner. I think overall the look was just a little bit too warm for that. It didn't really go with the bright pink. And at least for me, there's not a lot of inner corner options in this palette, so I just kind of went with the only choice. Looking back, I probably should have just used a highlighter, but again, not the worst look I've ever done. I didn't hate it. It just wasn't a favorite. This is a really beautiful palette though. I feel like you can create a lot of nice looks with it. I just think next time if I'm going to use this shade, I'll probably stick to like the cool tones and the pinkier tones. These are probably the only three shades I shouldn't have paired with that, and that's exactly what I did. Either way, I'm sure the next time I use the Rose Quartz, this palette will redeem itself. Or maybe I'll redeem myself. I think I was the problem. Another palette that I used one time in April was the ColourPop Getting Fresh palette. This is going to be part of an upcoming video. I think I'm probably going to do like 4 or 5 looks for one palette, just because this is pretty massive. So I'm sorry I did not take a picture of my look. However, if you do follow me on Instagram, I think I did post my look on my Instagram stories. So it is out there. I don't think anyone's like desperate enough to go search for it. But again, it's going to be in an upcoming video. So if you have this palette and you want some inspiration, you can keep an eye out for that. I'm going to group these next 3 together because I use them all to create one look. But these are the Mini Pro pigment palettes from ABH and Norvina. So this one was the Volume 1. This one was the Volume 2 palette. And then here was the Volume 3. Like I said, I use these all together for a single look. I actually filmed a palette bingo with these, so that'll be up on my channel probably pretty soon within the next week or 2. As I'm going through all these palettes, I feel like I'm realizing how much I've been filming lately. And you know what? I'm proud of me. Sorry for the side tangent, but I feel like I've been in like a pretty good rhythm with like the filming and editing. I don't know, I've been having a lot of fun with filming lately. But either way, if you'd be interested in a fun little palette bingo, which was obviously very colorful, then you can keep an eye out for that video too. I think this is the last palette that I used just once for the month of April, and it's the Urban Decay Naked Cyber. This is what the palette looks like, and I will add a picture on the screen here because I did actually take one this time. I will say this look was definitely nothing special. I would say this palette, besides the cool packaging, is also nothing special. I feel like overall there's not really much to say about this look. As you can see, it's very basic. You're not going to get anything non-basic with this palette. A little bit of qualm I have with this palette. If you're doing something that's supposed to be like all shimmery, kind of like shifty shades because it's like Naked Cyber, why would you not add like some of your moon dust formulas in here? Or the shimmers from the Stone Vibes palette, like that would have been really cool. I don't know, it's probably a bit of a useless tangent at this point. I don't think you can get this palette anymore, but just a thought that I had as I was using this palette. Definitely not bad. Again, I thought the look was cute, just nothing special. Alright, so I'll move on to the palettes that I used twice in the month of April. The first 2 I'd actually paired together both times that I used them. So it's going to be the ABH Cosmos palette and the Blend Bunny Forget Me Not palette. So this is the ABH Cosmos palette, and the Forget Me Not palette kind of opens like a book, but I'll hold it up like this. Obviously a lot more neutral. You could probably guess that I use this as a little bit more of a companion just for some of the transitional shades. I don't know if I have pictures of both of the looks I created with this palette. If so, I will obviously pop them both up on the screen. For the first look, I think I'd only dipped into like these 2 shades from the Cosmos palette. In the second look, I think it was just the white shade to like brighten up the inner corner, and then I used the shade as a highlight on my face. So I didn't get the most use out of this one. I definitely have created a look with this palette alone, but I do kind of prefer to use this as a companion. So I know I have a picture of the second look I created with these 2 palettes. I just don't know if I have one of the first. But for the second look, the, I guess, focal point of the look was using these 2 shimmers. I went a little bit more cool tone gray at the top with this shimmer, and then I did a pop of this kind of pinky purple duochrome on the bottom. I was just really drawn to a little bit more of a shimmery pop on the lower lash line. Doing that, especially with a bit of a duochrome shade like this, just gives kind of ethereal vibes, It's just really pretty, so I really like this look. The next palette that I used twice in April was the Urban Decay Wild Greens. This is probably one of my favorite palettes for spring. I just love the whole aesthetic of the palette. I love the packaging, and the color story is really pretty. And not only that, but the formula is actually really nice too. I feel like the mattes are a little bit on the softer side. You don't really get punched in the face with the pigment right away. So it's really easy to make a softer look or to build it up for something a little bit more intense. The first look I created with this palette is probably my favorite of the two. I went a little bit more neutral in the crease, and I think I used Twist all over the lid, which I would kind of describe as like almost a neutral green. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's definitely a lot more muted. And then I did a bit of like a minty pop on the inner corner, and I don't know, I just really liked that detail. I felt like it was really flattering. I felt like overall it was a very cute look, and I felt really pretty in it. The second look I did was focusing a little bit more on the peachy tones of this palette. It was a little bit more neutral and toned down. Very basic, but again, very pretty, and I really like how it turned out. I just really appreciate how kind of foolproof this palette is. For the second look especially, I was in a little bit more of a rush when I was doing my makeup that day. I just feel like it's easy to create something really pretty with this palette, even if you don't have a lot of time. So I really appreciate it, and I always love reaching into this one. The next palette that I used twice in April is the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 5. You might have guessed that I use this as a companion palette both times. It is an all shimmer palette. Most of them are a little bit extra. They're either like duochrome, multi-chromes, or very flaky. So I used this palette in conjunction with some other things, and I used it for two different looks. I think both of those were also for videos as well, so you'll see that on my channel soon. Also very proud of myself for finally reaching into this. I feel like these types of like all shimmer palettes or like duochrome multi palettes often go neglected in my collection. It's a little bit easier for me to forget about a palette if you can't really do a full look with it, if it doesn't offer both mattes and shimmers, or if you can only really do like intense or more dramatic looks. I do tend to forget about it, especially more on like a day-to-day basis. As you can probably see from some of these looks, I tend to go for something a little bit more basic. So yeah, I'm happy I reached into this one, and I'm excited to play around with it a little bit more. The next palette I used twice in April was the Blend Bunny All Done Up palette. Here's what the color story looks like. I created two really pretty but also really neutral looks with this one. The first look that you'll see on the screen here was definitely my favorite of the two. In a lot of the palettes, Blend Bunny tends to organize the colors into columns to make it a lot more user-friendly, especially for beginners. For the first look, I definitely jumped around the columns a little bit. If I recall correctly, I had used Pouty in the crease, and then I deepened it up with Doe-Eyed. I think I had blended that out with Features, and then I used Knockout in the inner corner, and I used Shine all over the lids. I will say I've only used two of the shimmers in this palette so far, and I feel like I can already say that Shine is my favorite. I don't even need to try the other three. Shine is just my kind of vibe. I will swatch it out for you, even though I'm not really doing that very much in this video. But it's just this really bright kind of iridescent green shade. Here it is like blended out just a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost got like a little bit of a glow to it. I just find it so pretty. It's giving me ethereal vibes. I feel like I've been referencing the ethereal vibes a lot in my videos lately, but those are kind of just the vibes that I'm into right now. Maybe because it's spring, I don't really know, but either way, I feel like the shimmer just kind of gave me all of that. So I really love this look because of the shimmer, really. The next look I did with this palette was, I guess, a little bit more monochromatic. I primarily just stick to this column here. I used every shade. And then I still went in with a little bit of Knockout, I think on top of Close Up on the inner corner, just to brighten it a little bit more. This was also a really pretty look. I love the shimmer I used in this one as well. Overall, this was just a very solid palette. I really like creating these two looks this month. The shadows perform beautifully, and I'm excited to use it some more. Another palette that I used twice in April is the Sigma New Mod. One of the looks is actually going to be featured in an upcoming 3 looks, 3 palettes video, so you'll see that one on my channel in a few weeks as well. In that one, I'm focusing on 3 Sigma palettes specifically, so if you have a few Sigma palettes and you might be interested in seeing that, then definitely stay tuned for that one as well. So again, I won't have a picture of that look, but I did create a second look using this palette. I don't remember the exact shades I used for this look, but I focused more on this side of the palette and went for something a little more rich and purpley, although I probably did use this shade on the inner corner. I really love both the looks I created this palette. Again, this one that you're seeing on the screen. I just felt like the tones were really rich. I don't really know how else to describe them, but I really like how it came out, and I've really been enjoying dipping into my Sigma palettes. And that actually brings me to the final palette that I've used twice this month, and it's the Sigma Enchanted palette. This is probably one of my favorite Sigma palettes. It's very spring to me. It's like approachable, it's neutral, but there's some muted colors in there. So even though you're likely going to create something that's a little bit toned down, it could still look very interesting at the same time. So one of the 2 looks I created this palette will be in that video that I mentioned, doing 3 looks with 3 palettes. And it's actually the one I'm wearing today, so a little bit of a spoiler. But I did use this palette when I got ready this morning, and I obviously filmed it. So if you're wanting to see how I created this smoky look, then stay tuned for that video. I'll post a picture of the other look I created with this palette. Even though I said this is one of my favorite Sigma palettes, I will admit this look was not my favorite. But also, I think user error. I think it was my fault. I was just really inspired to play with this green shade for this look, and then I kind of impulsively paired it with this gold yellow shade. I feel like the 2 shimmers still went well together. It looked cute, it was interesting. I just felt like the crease was maybe a little bit too warm toned for that green shade. I had used this kind of really deep green on the outer corner, and I almost feel like I should have incorporated more of that into the look. I feel like that would have made it come together just a little bit better, but either way, not a bad look, and I was definitely happy to reach for this one again today. Alright, so let's move on to the palettes that I used 3 times in April. The first palette I used 3 times, I'm so sorry, is actually going to be for a 3 looks 1 palette video. So I don't have any pictures to share because I'm a piece of shit, and I would rather you go watch my other YouTube video. If you're interested, if not, that's also fine. But I did 3 looks using the Mercury Retrograde by Huda Beauty. For one of the looks, I had actually paired this with the Danessa Myricks palette that I showed earlier. The other 2 looks were only using this palette, and I had a lot of fun playing around with it. There's a lot of versatility. You can go really colorful, you can go a little bit more neutral, or obviously mix them together. I always have the urge to play with this one this time of the year, so I was really happy to pull this out and film a few looks with it. And the last palette that I used 3 times in April, and the last palette I'm going to talk about in this video, is the Beauty Bay Botanical palette. This is a very fun palette. I also featured this one in my grungy spring palette video. It really gives those vibes. There's a lot of versatility in it. You can go really dark and deep and dramatic and grungy, but there's also some softer pops here. So overall, just a really fun palette. The first look I did with this was a little bit more neutral. I think I used maybe a combination of these and deepened it up with the purple here. I don't have a picture of that one because it's actually a short on my channel. So if you are curious, that's already posted and you can check it out. It was a work look, so again, nothing fancy. It was still pretty neutral and basic, but I thought it was really pretty. I'll post the pictures of the 2 other looks I created with this palette though. This first one was very cool toned. I wanted to focus on like the taupey gray shades in the palette. I don't remember exactly what I used. I think I used a combination of like these 3 shades and maybe this one. I'm pretty sure I used the shade Lily in like every look. This is kind of like my go-to inner corner shade. Although I'm definitely eyeing Matcha for the next look. I feel like that's also very much my vibe. But yeah, this more like gray silvery look. Again, pretty basic. It was just a quick work look. This last look that I'm going to show you is probably my favorite look that I created with this. This video might get interrupted by Atlas. Yep. He loves being on camera. He won't admit it, but I think he loves being on camera. Do you want to come up and say hi? We got him this cute toy for his birthday. His birthday was last week. He's 1 year old. We got him this fun toy that he is slowly but surely destroying. And he loves being on camera. Yes, he does. Oh, thank you. So we're gonna have to wrap up this video quickly. Oh, you're so handsome. How did you get so handsome? This should be studied. How is he so cute? I'm such a horrible mother. I had to kick him out so I could finish my video. I will go play with him after though, not to worry. I do have dog hair in my mouth though. That's perfect. Anyway, I'll show you the last look that I did with this palette. It's probably my favorite that I've done so far. I really wanted to play around with this peachy shade here, so that was kind of the main matte that I used. I think I had deepened that look up with maybe one of these 2 shades here. And if I remember correctly, I might have used this shimmer on the inner corner and on the inner part of the lower lash line. And then the main shimmer I used is probably one of my favorite shades in the palette, so far at least. It's the shimmer Waterfall here. I'll swatch this one out for you too. But it's almost like this bluey lavender, and then it shifts kind of like this yellowy gold. I just think it's so beautiful. I tried to blend it out a little bit on my finger so you can really see the dimension in the shade. I don't know, I feel like I don't have a lot of shimmers like that in my collection. It's a very unique shade and it's super pretty. I really like this look overall, but I kind of want to do like another look using that shimmer and then maybe pairing it with some of the cooler tone mattes. Like I said, I'm definitely eyeing that matcha shade too. There's just a lot you can do with this palette, and I don't know, I'm feeling really inspired by it. And yeah, those are all the palettes that I used in the month of April. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. I'd love to know what your most used palettes were, or what kind of color stories you tend to be inspired by around this time of the year. Also, I'd love to know if you enjoy this type of video, or if you have any feedback for anything else you'd like me to incorporate in a video like this. Let me know down below. And yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. Thanks so much for spending your time watching it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!